So I'm talking about chemtrails today, or so-called chemtrails. Um, I have a scientific background. I'll just tell you that. I scored very high on the graduate record examination. I'm in the very upper fourth quartile. I'll just leave it at that. In intelligence of the people who actually get secondary degrees, or graduate degrees, post-secondary, or it's college, whatever the fuck you call it, graduate, yeah. So whether it's masters or PhDs, so I do know that water itself is a greenhouse gas. So it is my theory that what is being dropped from planes is water. And because it's being dropped from such a high altitude, as it falls through the sky, it bursts and dissipates. Now, that's not to say that aluminum, barium, and strontium isn't in the stuff. I don't, and maybe they're cloud seeding as well. But cloud seeding doesn't happen as quickly as these trails are. You don't have immediate water vapor in a dense form collecting around aluminum, barium, and strontium particles. So whatever they're putting in the atmosphere is already opaque when it comes out of the back of the plane. So it's very likely already liquid. That's my feeling on it. Not to mention, these things form on days with extremely low relative humidity, extremely low dew points. So in altitudes that are very high in the sky, in the atmosphere, when on crisp, high pressure blue sky days in the middle of the fall, when there's like 0% humidity, it's like the crispest, driest 50-degree day in the fall, and all of a sudden by noon there'll be an opaque cloud cover after all these grid clouds start forming and then turn into overcast. And then I have situations that on the same day, high pressure zones are, when you look at old maps from the 80s and 90s and even now, they probably recycle old maps because these old maps that they're using for radar maps are actually probably recycled from before they were using chemtrails or these trails. I'm just going to call them water trails because I don't think they're chemtrails necessarily. I don't know that, but I don't have the logos on that one because I don't have a gas chromatography machine. So I can't take a sample of the air and put it through a gas chromatography. Put it through gas chromatography to see if there's strontium, barium, and aluminum in there. Anyone with a gas chromatography machine can do that, but I don't have one. So anyway, high pressure areas are the size of an entire town. The size of half the country. They move at 20 to 40 miles an hour or less. So for one day, for it to be a clear blue sky in the morning, for it to be totally cloudy at noon, and then for it to be a clear blue sky again at 3 o'clock p.m., and then a total overcast again at like 10 p.m., is totally fucking impossible when it comes to normal earthly weather patterns. That's totally fucking ridiculous to think that that's a natural occurrence. That's impossible. That's impossible. High pressure zones do not occur that are the size of a fucking small state. You don't get localized high pressure zones the size of Rhode Island moving 20 miles an hour through your state. Like the fucking Truman Show where he's on the beach and there's like a rain cloud above him, making it rain only above him. That's not how fucking weather patterns work, you fucking retards. So these are not this is not normal weather, no matter what you say. So let's just come from the presupposition that it's just water being sprayed out of the clouds. We can talk about motivation to do it, the effects. Okay, that's what I'm going to talk about. The who, what, where, when, and how. The logos. Because I know people are really big on logos on the internet right now. So I'm going to talk about the logos and the who, what, where, when, how, and why. So, water is a greenhouse gas. It is actually one of the most powerful or effective greenhouse gases, in that it absorbs and scatters almost the entire infrared band. So in other words, all of the radiation on the contiguous or continuous infrared band from, 500 nanometers down to, I think it's like 200 nanometers or something like that. The infrared band, I can't remember the demarcation of the, but I know that red is somewhere around 500 nanometers. So below red is infrared, invisible red. So it's what hot things emit. That's why you can use infrared glasses. So, your stove, you turn your stove on, you have an electric stove, it gets hot, but it's not red hot yet. But if you put a pair of infrared glasses on, it's white. And as it comes up into the visible red spectrum, it's even hotter. So, but below that, it's still very hot. It's just not, it's still emitting light. It's just not light that we can see with our eyeballs. But it's still electromagnetic radiation. Below the visible spectrum in humanity, the current visible spectrum in humanity is red to violet. Okay? So, below that, everything on the planet that isn't at absolute zero has some heat, and it emits radiation. So, the Earth is always emitting radiation back out into space. So, a greenhouse gas is preventing the infrared radiation from going out into space because it is absorbing it through its band gap. Like, if carbon dioxide's band gap is high enough so that it can absorb a quantum of energy or some form of infrared. I don't really believe in quantum physics, but let's just call it a quantum of energy that's below its supposed band gap, which is the amount of energy that a band gap is the amount of energy that it takes to excite an electron from a place in the valence structure of down in the lower quantum levels, that where it's not excited and it's in place and comfortable where it's at. When it absorbs a certain quantum of energy high enough, it will shoot an electron out into an orbit that's bigger than the current orbit that it's in, and it will excite the electron. It ionizes the molecule. So if a certain thing is if a radiation is below the band gap of a substance, it will absorb that. That substance will absorb that radiation because it's not powerful enough for it to convert that energy into a excited electron. It absorbs the energy until there's enough energy built up in that molecule to shoot an electron out into another orbit. This is how radiation is absorbed in our current model. Radiation is absorbed, or energy is absorbed by the ether or the substances in the ether, however you want to talk about it. It's absorbed. Okay? Carbon dioxide, methane, water. Now, in carbon dioxide, there's only a couple of wavelengths, a couple of small continuous wavelength ranges in carbon dioxide. It's probably only about a tenth of the entire infrared spectrum that carbon dioxide absorbs and scatters as a greenhouse gas. Water, however, absorbs and scatters virtually the entire infrared band is absorbed and or scattered by water. So water vapor is the most powerful and the most important greenhouse gas to talk about. So now, if they're spreading water in the sky by just dropping it through planes, and as it falls, like if you throw a glass of water out the window in a car, it immediately sprays and turns into a giant mist. Well, if you're riding 600 miles an hour in a jet and you dump water, it turns into a mist immediately. and then it falls through the sky, and because of its own vapor pressure, and because of the fact that maybe the sky is very dry, and it has lots of vapor pressure, so that it ends up sublimating and turning into gas very quickly. And when this happens, it becomes a greenhouse gas, which means that all sunlight entering the atmosphere, or that has entered the atmosphere, can no longer escape. Which means that the sun, the Earth and the cloud cover above it is turned into a giant heat capacitor. So the Earth is being turned into a heat capacitor, absorbing heat energy. And now, if you know anything about energy at all, then you know that energy cannot be created or destroyed according to our current model. And it's probably, it seems, intuitively accurate that you can convert energy from electrical energy to heat, or from, kinetic to potential, or heat to kinetic. Think of electrical to kinetic. Think of a fan. There's all kinds of different energy conversion methods. So heat energy can be created into kinetic energy very easily, because when you heat the ocean up, for instance, it will cause vorticular motions upward when there is the correct conditions, and cause a spinning mass of water vapor called a hurricane in order to dissipate heat. Water will dissipate heat if it's allowed to in the right conditions. It's called a hurricane. Now, when Hurricane Sandy happened in 2012, it was said that the Gulf Stream, which comes up the side of the United States, the East Coast, was 9 degrees warmer than usual. So whether or not global warming is happening, the Gulf Stream was being measured as 9 degrees. Now, I didn't go out into the Gulf Stream and measure if it was 9 degrees normal. So I don't know if any of this is true, if any of this is the grammar. But it appears that things were warmer that year. And not to mention, you cannot create the most giant hurricane we've ever seen without heat energy. So something was hot enough to create kinetic energy. It's fucking physically impossible for that much kinetic energy to dump hundreds of millions of tons of sand on the coast of New Jersey. It is not possible without the energy to lift and move hundreds of millions of tons of sand. That is work. That is force being applied over distance, which causes work to be done in kinetic energy terms. That is work. Okay? You need heat or kinetic energy or electricity or something to do that work. It needs to be there. You can't get something out of nothing, except if you have a perpetual motion machine. But I don't think that the ocean is a perpetual motion machine. I think that heat energy will definitely cause the ocean to move. And it does. So my feeling, and my very well educated, my current theory, hypothesis on these trails being dumped from planes, is that the powers that should be, because they should be killing everybody, because everybody's an idiot and they shouldn't be reproducing. The powers that should be are using chemtrails to heat the planet up so that they can cause a permanent natural disaster economy, because they know that wars are very unpopular. It causes presidents to be unpopular. It's soldiers come back addicted to drugs, and they have Gulf War syndrome, or it's just a mess. But with natural disasters, because wars, like in 1984, they used war to break down all of the structures and blow up half the world all the time, so that they could rebuild the world, so that they could keep the economy artificially propped up, to keep people working and overworking. So they were destroying things and building in planned obsolescence into the economy so that they could keep people working. And in order to keep people working, they were smashing and bombing the fucking world constantly. Well, now they can smash the world with fires and hurricanes and things like that, and weather control. And they can get on, Governor Christie and from New Jersey and Barack Obama can get up on television and stroke each other off and tell each other what heroes they are and the first responders, what heroes the first responders are, and it unifies the country, and you've got volunteers going down and saving people, and it's like this wonderful kumbaya moment when they use technology to destroy half the fucking East Coast. So it's perfect. It's a perfect scam for them to do it. And, people are fucking stupid enough to believe it because they're morons and they don't care about science and they don't care about logos and they don't care about grammar at all. So to summarize, the powers that are running the world right now are using airplanes to dump water into the sky to create the most powerful greenhouse gas that there is, water, to trap heat, to create heated conditions so that they can create superstorms, so that they can keep destroying huge amounts of land so that they can keep the economy propped up and keep people working and overworking so that they can keep everybody stupefied, which they deserve to be because they're stupid and they don't care about the future or the future of their children anyway. They don't, right now babies are being poisoned and there's 1 out of 36 children in New Jersey is autistic. Nobody cares. So they deserve everything they're getting because they're fucking the most apathetic losers that have ever disgraced the face of this planet. So they deserve to be killed off, and I'm glad the powers that be are using water to do this. But this is my own revelation of the method. I wanted to reveal to everybody what supposed chemtrails are. They're not chemtrails, as far as I think. If you can prove to me the grammar by, going out with a gas chromatography machine and getting an air sample from high up above the Earth from one of these chemtrails and putting it through gas chromatography and proving that there's aluminum, strontium, and barium in there, great, do it. Show me. But I don't believe it. And so that's it. So go fuck yourself. I enjoy that you're all being killed off, because you'd kill me if you could. I know that for a fact. I've already seen evidence of that. So people hate smart people. They hate the odd fellow. That's all there is to it. So fuck off and have fun with your superstorms. Have a good one.